various sampling techniques. You have learnt about hypothesis. You have learnt about measurements of scales, scales again, types of scales, and the applications of scales. Literature review, how can be done with the literature review. And today we'll be talking about data collection method, and tomorrow we'll have the questionnaire preparation, and then we'll directly go for the analysis, data analysis, and at last we'll have the data analysis through SPSS. The last session will be on 30th, and the last session will be data analysis through SPSS. Prior to that, I'll have the report writing, and I'll also have the academic writing part. And today would be the data collection method, as I said earlier. So usually when we talk about the data collection, there are few things which we have to find out. That is, what is a data? Data is actually defined as the facts presented to the researcher. Where you usually, when we talk about research, and when we have already done the literature review, when we have already framed our objectives, and we have already listed our hypothesis, we have already established the hypothesis, null hypothesis, and also the uh, uh, alternative hypothesis out of assumptions. We'll have to now find out the various facts which will help you to accept your null hypothesis or reject your null hypothesis. So for that, you need to collect the facts. You need to collect the facts from your, as yesterday sir was talking about the sampling. Facts has to be collected from the predefined environmental, the study of environment. And then data are metaphorical, then real. In fact, it is always the description. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It is, data are always figurative in nature, that will always give you a true picture. And data is processed usually by our senses. Before, when we are establishing or stating the hypothesis, we always think that, okay, as we have seen, as we have understood, and as we have sensed out in the society, this hypothesis would, this hypothesis is correct. That is how we always, process our senses. And collecting data is very complicated. It is time bound in nature, and once the data is collected, you need to process the data with a lot of care. So what are the types of data which are available? Especially in the social sciences, we have data on individual characteristics, that is the variables like age, gender, education, marital status, income, occupation, etc. We have data on behavioral characteristics, attitudes, opinions, and challenges. Uh, Say, for example, when we talk about compilation of data, it is like how many people from this age to this age have been our respondents. How many people married, not married, have been our respondents. Though we call them as samples, but that is the data we usually collect from the samples. And then we talk about the organizational data. Organizational data is, which talks about the origin of the organization, growth of the organization, performance of the organization, or it talks about the various kinds of employees of the organization. So, and then we have the territorial data. Territorial data is, the one which has the geographical characters. Say, for example, it is always said that, the the areas which are there, the geographical areas which are there on the hillside are usually cold. This is the data. This is the data which has been proven. So such data is, such data is an example for the territorial data. Then relevance of the data. In fact, when we talk about the data collection methods, we have to usually understand why is this particular data required. Without an analysis, no inference can be made on objectives. The data will help you to make the inferences and make your objectives achieved. You should always be looking at the adequacy, relevance, and reliability of the data, which will always determine the quality of your research and findings. And data is the very base for verification of your hypothesis. Whether your hypothesis is true, whether your alternate hypothesis is true or your null hypothesis is true. Only after the analysis of this particular data which you have collected, that will help you for the hypothesis testing. It gives facts about the scales and measurement techniques and the tables. And the scientific process are laid on the foundation of the reliable data. In fact, if you when you say that so many people, the data which is available on newspapers compared to the previous month data of people who have been affected by COVID-19 to this month data of people affected on by COVID-19. Looking at this condition, you can easily mention that the COVID-19 effects have been increasing, and this is dependent only on the data. Now, what is the data collection? Data collection is actually a process which researchers collect the information which is required for their research work. These are the data, this is the information which is required for achieving the objectives of the research. This is the data, the information which is required for proving your hypothesis. And this is the data the data is the one which will help you to say that what your research objectives were there, what was the research problem which was identified, whether the solution of that problem can be obtained or not. And the task of data collection usually begins after the research problem has been identified and research design has been chalked out. Anybody has a question there? Okay. The researcher, while collecting data, should always remember which data has to be collected. They need to be very careful on collecting the kind of data, how it should be collected, and who will give the right information, and when it has to be collected. Now, say for example, if you are doing a particular research on COVID-19, you have to do the data collection right now. Right now, matlab whenever whenever people are getting affected, only this time. Later, if you think another 1 year down the line, if you can do a particular research on the effects of COVID-19 on the victims, that time your data will not be available. So you need to be little smart enough to identify when, how, and whom and what kind of data you will have to collect for your research. Usually the selection of a method for collecting the data will always be dependent on the resources available, the credibility of people who are going to give you the data, and it also helps for analysis and reporting, and the skill of the evaluator. After you get the data, whether if you have the skill of analyzing this data, then it is helpful. In fact, a lot of researchers I have seen, they doesn't even know how to use the data. They are good at collecting the data, but they doesn't know how to use the data. With all respects to them, they go to some other person who's statistically very sound, and then they go and sit with him or her, and try to find out, this is the data I have collected, what kind of analysis I can do with this. So that is why it is very much important that you need to understand what kind of data you want and how you will be evaluating that particular data. Now, these are the methods of data collection. Usually, there are these two kinds. All kind of data collection method will be classified under these two: primary data and the secondary data. But when it comes to what should be done first, it is always the secondary data. During the process of your research, what kind of data you should be collecting first, whether it is primary data or secondary data, the answer is always the secondary data. Now, secondary data are those which have already been collected by someone else, and which have been done through some statistical analysis. Statistical analysis, say for example, your secondary data can be a paper published by someone else, a thesis report of someone else, or a secondary data can be some analytical resource, some analytical report of a company performance, or some reports of the research done at the national or international level. Such reports can be your secondary data. Coming to your primary data, all the data which are being collected first time by the researcher, first hand information collected by the researcher himself, that becomes the primary data. Now, say for example, when we tell this to the students, that if the data is being collected by the researcher himself, then we call it primary data. It is not like that. If for my research I have prepared a questionnaire and I ask my students to go and collect the data, still that data can also be called as a primary data, which is being taken for a particular research, but the data is original. And when we talk about the whenever we talk about the data collection method, there are two things which we need to always look at. One is validity of the data, and the other one is reliability of the data. In fact, the validity is whether the data which I am collecting is valid, and whether the content is valid, whether it has got a constructive valid, whether the data is valid with what you say, for my research, whether the data is valid for my research, that validity you need to check, and the reliability also you need to check on the data. Say for example, you construct a questionnaire, and you cannot just send it across to everybody to collect the data. You should have a lot of reliability tests to be done. There is reliability test done through the statistical measures also, and the reliability test can also be done through the experts. Experts will always give you an opinion on the reliability. So whenever you are collecting the data, you need to always have this validity and reliability test done for the instrument as well as the samples which you are collecting. That is why there is something called a pilot study which is done before you collect the data. Before you collect the final data for your research, there is something called a pilot study which is done. That is like an experimentation which will help you for validating and reliability of your instruments and the data which you have collected. The uses of secondary data, Secondary data is usually collected at the problem identification and formulation stage. The secondary data will help you for hypothesis designing, consideration, identification of the samples, and how much sample you need to, how much primary data you need to collect. You will get that base only on the secondary data, and validation and authentication can be done only using the secondary data. And the other way around, I could say that your secondary data will help you always to bring in, identify the objectives. It always helps you to frame the research gap, and it always helps you to, frame your problem. I mean, reframe your problem. Now, the sources of secondary data: internal data through the company records, employee records, sales data, and other sources of the company. And external data is published data from the government sources or any other sources. Like, they talk about the newspaper, they talk about the magazines which have been published. Say, if you want to collect the data on, I mean, if you want to buy a vehicle and you want to collect some data on that particular vehicle, so you just check all the magazines, sports magazines in which this particular vehicle review is being mentioned. So that can be an external data for you, external source of secondary data for you. And these are the various computerized databases, computer based information which you can get. And again, most of these are your secondary data sources. Okay, the advantages of secondary data: it always saves the time and cost. It helps the researcher to formulate the problems, identify the data collection methods, data collection sources, and it also helps you to compare the data. Secondary data is always economy. As said, it saves the cost and time. It is easily available, and most of the time your secondary data can be accessed with a click of button at the place where you are. And if you have, nowadays it is like, you have all your websites, you have everything which you can access from your mobiles. And the verification of the secondary data is always possible. Disadvantages is the data fit problem may not fit to our needs sometime. In fact, when you want to search for a word on Google, there will be a lot of irrelevant data which comes in also. So you will usually take some time to find out the data which will fit your needs. A unit of measurement may not match for the secondary data. The accuracy problem, in fact, say for example, if you want to identify how many people have been affected uh, by COVID-19, again, the accuracy will not be there. Whatever it is being published on that newspaper, that itself is true for consideration. And because of that, there will be a lot of errors, like, errors in the samples. And whatever is the original and whatever is being published as a secondary data, there will be a variations. And the collection of primary data will can always be collected through experiments, surveys, interviews, observations, questionnaires, and schedules. Above all of these, the one which are very important are observation methods, interview methods, questionnaires, and the schedules. But however, we are focusing on these four along with some other techniques. Now coming to the observation method. Observation may be defined as the systematic weaving coupled with consideration and scene phenomenon. You look at what is happening and then you collect the data from that. Now, say for example, if you want to identify, if you go to a retail store, if you observe in a retail store, there are specific location of each of the items which are sold. What might be the reason? Immediately when you enter, most of the retail centers which I have seen, once when you enter inside, first thing they'll keep immediately catching your attention are those items which has discounts, which are the stock clearance sale. Such kind of things they keep it first, just to grab your attention. All this kind of adjustment is done based on the observations done by the experts in marketing. And according to Zygmunt, what he says is every observation will have these kind of contents. One is they look at the physical actions of the respondents. They talk about verbal behavior. You can also observe the expressive behavior. The difference between verbal behavior and expressive behavior is when people talk, especially when it comes to body language, there is this difference between, just a moment. ಹಣ್ಣು ತಿನ್ಸಕ್ಕೆ ಕಲ್ಲಂಗಡಿ ಹಣ್ಣು ನಂಗೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು 35-17 ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಅವ್ರು ಲೇಟಾಗಿ ಬಂದಾರೆ. ಕಲ್ಲಂಗಡಿ ಹಣ್ಣು sorry for the inconvenience. So we were talking about the difference between verbal behavior and the expressive behavior. People talk something and they express something. So most of the behavioral experts will always find the difference between the verbal and the expressive behaviors. Then the spatial relations, temporal patterns, and verbal records. So these are 6 kind of contents that can be observed by the respondents. Steps for an effective observation. This is the process how you can look at the making your observation process very effective. Determine what is to be observed. You will have to make a list of what observations are to be made. Select the participants, whether it is random or it is already selected. Conduct the observation, venue, duration, record material, taking photographs and other things, and also videos. Compile the data and analyze and interpret the data. This is how your whole observation process can be planned. Now, classifications of observations. You have a structured observation wherein you know what is to be observed. Like say for example, you are observing the buying behavior of the people, especially of those women who are very much inclined towards good looks. Now when you look at them, you have a list of questions. Say for example, whether they always seek their own opinion, they go by their own opinion, or they seek by their friend's opinion. They wear something and then they ask the other person, how is it looking? Now there are these behaviors which will be listed down, and you will be looking at these observations only. So you have a list of observations which are to be made, and then you look at that. You only observe those things. Now unstructured is you only know what is the agenda you want to observe. Only the agenda, what is that you are trying to find out from the observation, but you do not have a specific structured things or structured items which you want to observe. Now there is this participant observation. Participant observation is you being a part of the participants. You try to talk to them and then you get the data what you want. And it is also there is also something called the non-participant observation. Non-participant observation is uh, you don't even belong to the participants team, and also participants doesn't know what is that you are observing. Uncontrolled observation. Uncontrolled observation is you do not have any control over what is happening there. Now, say for example, there was this one TV show by name Bakra. I don't know how many of you have seen in MTV. In that TV show, the camera was placed somewhere.
Yes, ma'am.
The camera was placed somewhere, and there was no control happening over how people behave and all. Sometimes there were situations where people used to hit you also. I mean, hit the anchor also. That was an uncontrolled observation. And controlled observation is though people doesn't know what is happening in and around, but you can indirectly control the behaviors of people. So these are the advantages and disadvantages of observation. I'll be skipping these slides of advantages and disadvantages. You can read it through later. Bella. Okay. Interview method. The interview method is a method of collecting data which involves presentation of oral verbal stimuli and reply in terms of oral verbal responses. It is very simple. You ask questions to the respondents, but you do not give them a schedule or a questionnaire. You ask the questions and you make a note of those questions. That is how your interview method is. The steps of effective interview: you prepare the interview schedule, that is the list of questions what you want to ask. Again, identify the subjects or the respondents, conduct the interview, analyze and interpret the data. Classifications of interviews. Structured interviews, you have a pre-decided question which you want to ask. Unstructured interview, you only your attention is only focused on the experience of the respondents and its effects. Focused interview, attention again here also it is only focused on how the respondents will respond and what are the effects of the same. Clinical interviews. Clinical interview is usually conducted by a psychiatric or a person from the psychology background. They look at the motives and feelings which are underlying when the person is answering. Group interviews, a group of 6 to 8 people are involved during conduction of the interview. Qualitative and quantitative interview, again qualitative data you collect and you collect the quantitative data. Now say for example, when you are doing an interview, you just ask how many times you do shopping in a month. The numbers which you want to collect from the respondents, that becomes your quantitative data. And what is it they are looking for in the particular product, that becomes your qualitative data. these are the advantages and disadvantages of interviews. Focused group discussion, the other method of conducting the collecting the data. This is an interview which is conducted by the trained moderator in a non-structured and natural manner with a small group of respondents. I had a similar experience of conducting one focused group discussion on the women's of rural area. We were trying to find out the entrepreneurship development, that is livelihood projects from rural areas of North Karnataka. We had we had a training program on entrepreneurship development first, and then we had identified the people who are interested in starting up their own business, though with or without the funding by the third party, not by their own. So we identified such kind of people, and then we had this focused group discussion. Now the procedure is: determine the objectives of the research and define the problem, specify the objective of qualitative research, state the objectives and questions which to be answered by the focused group, always have a screening questionnaire, develop a moderator's outline. This is always like, you do an interview, and then after interview the moderator will give you the whole result of what was interviewed, what was the result, what was the discussion about. His own the moderator will always understand on his own and then interpret what he has understood. The disadvantages of this is like, there are most of the time, there are misrepresentations of the data which has been collected non-purposely. You can also have the review tapes, videos, and then analyze the data, the whole summarization of these findings, and you can have a follow-up research plan if the data which is collected is not sufficient. So usually the focus group, the group of respondents will be 8 to 10, and it will be a homogeneous respondents, and always a pre-screened respondents. In fact, the example which I told you, there we had selected only those kind of people who are interested to start their business. And then the physical setting will be usually the informal setting and very relaxed condition. It is not like, you have some test to be taken and you have some tension, or you have a lot of anxiety to answer the questions. So usually what is done in the focus group discussion is, the respondents and the moderator will usually have some time spent with each other, so that they become more relaxed, and they talk to the respondents. They talk to the moderator. The recordings here can be done in terms of audio and video also, and the selection of moderator should be the apt person who is good at observations, interpersonal, and communication skills. Such kind of such kind of moderator you can use. These are 5 disadvantages of focus group. What happens is, this misjudgment I have told, misuse, I would tell the very important ones here. Difficult to analyze. What happens is, the data which you have copied through a video or audio system, and whatever is being mentioned by the moderator, sometimes the misjudgment of the data can happen, and the moderator script, what is being submitted, may mismatch with what is observed by the other party, the other moderator. Moderator here is a felicitator. What I understand from the video may be different from what the other person understands from the video. So usually, this focused group, we usually find it little difficult or non-accurate for data collection method. Then we have the projective techniques. The projective techniques are, you project something and you try to get the data from that. I'll show you the examples of the projective techniques. In fact, most of the projective techniques uh, are a kind of data collection when people are not responsive. That is, when respondents are not uh, cooperating with the researcher. Such times you can give this projective techniques. Example, these are various projective techniques which are there. I'll just give you the examples of some. This is a free word projection. Now, say for example, this is a word. When you talk about a postman, what comes to their mind? That is what they need to write here. Likewise, you have a stimulus words and there will be a response given by the respondents. But for framing these questions, you need to have an expert with you. Sentence completion. ATM users are, you just leave this sentence half done. So whatever comes to their mind, they'll write it. And this is a question which is taken from the research on ATMs. Unfinished scenario completion. Now you can also give such scenarios wherein the person will give you an answer for this question. Now these are few methods of various data collection methods and tools and its application in various fields. This is one summary which I got from internet. I thought I'll share this with you. In every field, what are the various types of data collection methods that I have I'll send this PPT. You can go through this. Any questions so far? Do we have any questions? Hello?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am.
Oh, ma'am.
When there are no questions,
The
either it
PPT?
is you have understood something or you haven't understood something, or it was too common topic.
No, ma'am, it has been understood.
It is very clear.
Understood, ma'am.
Understood, ma'am.
Okay. Otherwise, if you have any questions, you can just post these questions